Hello friends, this is Christopher davis-shannon, and a few weeks ago my friend Bernadette had posted a video on Instagram showing a few different variations of the C major chord on ukulele. And I thought to myself, what if we took this concept and went way too far with it? The first order of business is we need to suss out what a C major chord really is. In the uke world, we generally see a C major and we play this. But why do we play this? And this is really derived from our major scale. We play every note from C to C. And from this scale, we can build different types of chords. We're going to be working with a basic triad or a three-note chord here. So for C major, our tonic chord in the key of C, we're going to have the root or the first scale degree, a C. And then we're going to add on top of this the third scale degree, which we will call the third, C, D, E. That just so happens to be our next open string. On top of this, we're going to skip the next note and put the fifth, C, D, E, F, G. That's our next open string. And then up here on the third fret of our A string, we have our octave C. So this grouping of notes is what a C major chord is, and anywhere that we place those three notes on the fingerboard is a C major chord. Not just here, we also have here, 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 all of these C major chords. So what we're going to do here is break down what we call different voicings of the C major chord, or different ways that we can apply it to the fingerboard. Now I'm organizing this in three separate sections by what are called inversions. So as I just told you, the first note that we have in our chord is a C, right? But this doesn't always have to be the lowest note in the chord. The E could also be the lowest note in our chord, and we call this a first inversion chord. And likewise, the G could be the lowest note in our chord, and we call that a second inversion chord. Now we don't concern ourselves too much with inversions on ukulele, and if you are playing low G, the inversions would be different, because if you think about the standard C major you play, well, in fact, G is the lowest note harmonically in the chord, so this would be our second inversion chord. So we won't discuss inversions too much, although the video is organized and split apart via inversions. So let's dive into 16 different ways to play the C major chord. Now let's go over 7 different variations of our root position C major chord. So of course we have our standard one, open, open, open 3 that we have always played. But we now know that on the bottom 3 strings of our uke, we have all of the notes necessary to form this triad. So we can move the notes on the A string around and change the treble voice of the chord. So we can move this up to the 7th fret, and that's an E, the third of our chord. Everything's still open, and then up on the 10th fret we have a G, the 5th of our chord, everything open. Now while we're up here, we can also play around with notes on other strings. So if we add the 9th fret of our G string, that is an E, the same as the 7th fret that we just played, and everything else open. So we now have 9 open, open, 10. And in addition to this, we can add our octave C on the 8th fret of the E string. So we'll have 9 open, 8, 10. Still a C major chord. While we're here, we can take a very similar one and we can keep the G string open, C string open, add that C, that octave on the 8th fret of our E string, and maintain this E on the 7th fret. And one final one that we can use, which is a lot of fun, is to do the 5th fret, which is a C on our G string, but play the G now on the 3rd fret of our E string, and put the pinky up top for the 7th fret on the E on the A string, leaving the C string still open. So there we have 7 different variations of our root position C major chord. Now let's look at the first inversion iterations. The first thing we need to do to find this inversion is, well, find our third, the E on our C string, and this is on the 4th fret of our C string. So the first option we can do is we can just double that E in the inner voice. We can put down our regular C major chord and just change the note on the bottom of the chord, putting down the 4th fret of our C string. So we have open 4, open 3, doubling that inner voice. Now we could instead double the 5th of the chord. We have open 4, 3, 3. Still a first inversion C major chord. And instead of that, we have 4 strings, 3 notes to work with. We could also play the 5th fret of our G string. That's our C. So we have this, and then we have one final one that we can add, and that's putting this E up top. Now let's look at second inversion. For our second inversion chord, we need to put the G as the highest note on the C string, which is going to bring us up to the 7th fret. And our natural one that we play up here is open 7, 8, 7. You can see this is similar to a voicing that we did in root position as well. Now likewise, with our first inversion chords, we can also double the C. We can play 5, 7, 8, 7. And in that, since we have all of our notes covered already, we can also lift up the pinky, play 5, 7, open, there's our E, and then double the E up top, an octave above. And then we can take this, and we have this shape here that we were just playing, but we can add the 9th fret of our G string. So it's 9, 7, 8, 7. This is obviously getting a little bit high up on the neck. And then finally, what we can do is add the pinky on the 10th fret, and have that entire voicing up here. Now, some of these higher voicings might not necessarily be very practical in common usage, but they're great to have under our belt. Now, naturally, there are many more ways that we can play a C major chord on ukulele. And I had reached out to my friend Ukulele George, who is someone who has been putting together a book of all the different voicings of chords on ukulele. And he came up with quite a few other iterations of this, but many of them require us to drop one of the notes of the chord. And for our purposes here, we have used the entire triad. Now, obviously, you can also go further up on the neck as we go to the 12th fret. We get about 10 more variations of the chord. So why don't you challenge yourself this week and try to find just one more voicing of a C major chord that I haven't talked about here and drop it right down in the comments. I'll see y'all next week.